Welcome back to Comic Book History. This is episode number 25. Yeah, I haven't done this series in approximately 3 months. Don't know why, just didn't feel like it for a while. Yeah, I couldn't decide exactly what I wanted to do for this series, like what to do for the next episode. I kind of figured, okay, let's finally do something interesting. Why don't we talk about a group I haven't talked about yet? The Suicide Squad. Yep. Now, there are two different Suicide Squads. Yep. Yeah, there's approximately two of them. The first one is Incarnation, because they World War II, but they made a debut. Excuse me, I think it was in 1958, I believe it was. Let's see. I just want to make sure here. Yeah, it was actually 1959. In September 1959, exactly 3 issues before the debut of the Justice League in Brave and the Bold number 25. Yeah, this was Incarnation. Only consists of 2 people who actually recently showed up in the recent issue of Suicide Squad, and that was Rick Flag and Karen Grace. Yeah, these 2 were pretty much part of this group for a long time, and I do mean a long time. Yep. Now, this group was created by the late Robert Kaniger and the late Ross Ardrut. Yeah, these 2 have since passed away over the years. Yeah, they didn't appear that very much. I mean, after the initial appearance from Brave and Bold 25 to 27, they disappeared, returned for 37 39, Brave and the Bold, and then they moved on to, let's see, they moved on to Star Spangled War Stories for issues 110 and 111, 116, 121, 125, 127, and 128. I have not read the Star Spangled War Stories issues yet, but I did read the Brave and Bold ones. Yeah, these are like Bazaar-like missions. These are just regular people. Yeah, and after the initial concept ended, they decided to, well, how should I put this? Not really do very much with the Suicide Squad for about 20 years. Yeah, it wasn't until 1986 when the group was brought back, thanks to the awesome John Ostrander, who brought him back in the 3rd issue of Legends. In issue 1, they brought in, of all people, issue 1 was the introduction of Amanda Waller, and Rick Flag was brought back. Karen Grace was brought in the group for a good year of the book before she got killed off. This is, of course, in pre-Flashpoint continuity. Yeah. Now, the original group, basically from the 1950s, were basically World War II Incarnation. This consisted of Rick Flag, Karen Grace, Dr. Hugh Evans, and Jess Bright. Yeah, 4 people who went on oddball missions, basically battling monsters. It was an interesting time, interesting set of stories. Luck enough, DC did release a Silver Age version of the Silver Age book to collect everything. Yep. Now, the group themselves, even though they made their first public appearance in issue 3, they kind of basically had the roots planned in issue 2. With the founding members, well, first people to join the team being, well, Amanda Waller, obviously, Chemico, Deadshot, Rick Flag, obviously, Bronze Tiger, and then issue 3 we have Enchantress, Boomerang, and the original Blockbuster, Mark Desmond. I say original one because this guy died in the miniseries Legends. Now, of these original people, Blockbuster and Deadshot are Batman villains. June Moon is actually sort of an anti-hero. Yeah, she's one of the very few, like, actual good people who are part of the Suicide Squad. Currently, she's part of the Incarnation right now that Rob Williams does. Chemico is an enemy of the Metal Men. I have no idea why he was out of the roster, but he was. Excuse me. Bronze Tiger is somebody who's been sort of loosely tied to Batman thanks to his creator, Danny O'Neill. First appeared in the series Red Dragon Master Kung Fu. Yeah, it was during the 70s phase. Now, this character actually originally appeared in a novel that Danny O'Neill wrote, and he just basically brought him to DC Universe anyways. That Daniel, and I think it was called Red Dragon. Yeah, he made his debut in issue 1. He was called like a recurring antagonist for the character. That series was worthy for introducing another known longtime associate of the Batman mythos. Lady Shiva made her debut in that very same series. And Like, Lady Shiva, as far as I can tell, never really much associated with the League of Assassins. Bronze Tiger did. And Bronze Tiger is also noteworthy for one thing before he joined Suicide Squad. He killed the original Batwoman with a machine gun. Bill Grant Morrison later retconned this and said, oh yeah, she actually faked her death and she actually was alive, and she later killed Talia al Ghul. Instead of go after the guy who apparently killed her. Of course, he did this back in 1970s. Yeah. Captain Boomerang is obviously a Flash villain. Now, these are other people who joined the group during the first volume of the series. We have Bruce, of course, Karen Grace, Mindbogger, Nemesis, who actually is agent of the government, Nightshade, who is a creation of Steve Ditko from his Captain Atom series from the 60s, Plastique, a Jerry Conway character, let's see, one of the Black Orcas, like several of these people, Kronos, a Ray Palmer Atom villain, the Penguin, who's actually had some interesting stories in the series, by the way. Yeah, he's kind of like an associate member in the series. Basically, he was serving time, and basically he decided to become part of the Suicide Squad for a few missions. Yeah. Killer Frost, Velocity, Multiplex, Slipknot, Parasite, all originally Firestone villains. The Rudy Jones version of Parasite, who was also featured in an episode of Supergirl, is a creation of John Ostrander. The other ones are creations of the awesome Jerry Conway. We also have Mark Shaw, who joined in issue 8 of all things. Yeah, he actually brought... basically, Ostrander resurrected this character after his last appearance in the 70s, which Echo Heart wrote that issue. Basically, prior to him returning for the event Millennium, he made a handful of appearances in the 70s. He made his first appearance in first issue special number 8, which was written by the late Jack the King Kirby, and then Echo Heart basically continued the character in a series of issues for his run, his awesome run he did for Justice League America in the 1970s, and he was brought back a decade later. He also was briefly known as the Privateer, where he wore an eye patch. Seriously, that's what he did. Yeah, he's actually not a villain. Yeah. There's also Duchess, who's actually revealed to be Lasha of the Fatal Furies. Yeah. We also have Teen Titans founding member Speedy, Vixen, another Jerry Conway character, Mr. 4, not really much know about this character. The original Thinker, who's going to be the main villain of Flash Season 4. We also have, let's see, Psy, don't know much about this character. Javelin. Javelin. I have to look him up here. Let's see. Javelin is a Green Lantern villain. Yeah. A Green Lantern villain. Captain Cold, obviously a Flash villain. Shade the Changing Man. This is the original version of Shade the Changing Man. Not the one that Peter Milligan did for his Vertigo series, and not the one who showed up in Justice League Dark. This is the original one that Steve Ditko created in the 1970s. He returned in the Suicide Squad, and after he left, he was never seen in comics ever again. Yeah, this version, anyways. We also have the former Batgirl, Oracle, Green Arrow villain Count Vertigo, Dr. Light, a JLA villain, Julian Punch, also characters created by Steve Ditko. Strike, who is a let's see, not really much known about this character. It's just a mental patient. Yeah. Let's see. We have Raven. I don't think it's the Teen Titans character. Lady Liberty, Silent Majority, Major Victory. I think these people from the Forces of July, who were outside villains. Poison Ivy, the Atom. This is not Ray Palmer or Alfred. This is Adam Cray. He's actually another character who I'm going to talk about in a minute. Basically, he's filling in for Ray Palmer because at this point in time when he first showed up, Ray Palmer was declared dead. Yeah, he apparently got killed off. Yeah, and later revealed that, oh yeah, he actually faked it to take out a group of CIA agents who actually killed a group of aliens by stepping on them. And he wanted to be punished for it. And this Adam died. In a 6-inch form, being stabbed with a nail. Seriously, that's how Ostrander killed this character off. Let's see. We also have this is of course 50 was the last time they had any members join the team. Sorry, Sabak. I'm not really familiar with this guy. Black Adam, Catalyst, Enforcer, Firehawk was actually from the pages of Firestorm. She's a creation of Jerry Conway, who actually was a love interest in the original Firestorm. Messer, Karma, Outlaw, Silver Swan, who is a Wonder Woman villain, Sportsmaster, one of them anyways, and a character known as the Writer, who apparently is supposed to be this universe's version of Grant Morrison. Yeah, the original volume lasted for 66 issues when it was published. Now, this is a little over 5 years, and if you ever get a chance to read these issues are so good. And about half the run, basically, around like issue 24, they had John Ostrander's late wife, Kim Yale, who died in the 1990s of breast cancer, who also helped him on a few other books that he did. Basically, she was brought on to be his co-writer because he was doing several books, basically, so he really wanted to keep this book going. Also, at the same time he was doing Suicide Squad, he also basically took over Firestorm after Jerry Conway left. He launched a brief Manhunter title, awesome title, highly recommended. It's only 24 issues. This time, Suicide also had an annual, which was a crossover between Manhunter and Suicide Squad, though the artwork is terrible in this annual. Yeah, I'm like, seriously? If you read this annual, the artwork in this thing is atrociously bad. I'm like, really, DC? You allowed this through, and yet in the actual series, the artwork is so much better. Yeah. The character Deadshot, well, who was briefly written in the series of issue 18, so he can have his brief mini-series. This series has been collected in trade in the first Deadshot trade that was released. Excuse me, it was a great mini-series. Highly recommend it. It's only 4 issues. Let's see. I think that was it. Later on, he did launch Martian. He did launch the Spectre, and then he did Martian Manhunter after this. After Suicide Squad ended. They went on various adventures, basically fighting Darkseid. Well, basically Darkseid's forces. They never actually fought Darkseid himself. In their first year, like a little over 1 year into the title, they had a crossover with the Justice League International. Which, if you read the article, now some people are thinking, when they did Justice League versus Suicide Squad last year, they're thinking, this is the first time they've ever done a crossover with each other. No, this is not the first time. As a matter of fact, during the JLI day, this happened 3 times. First time was the crossover between Justice League International 13 and Suicide Squad 13. There was a couple other times after this one. They actually this for. It was an issue of Firestorm where they had Rick Flag with the Suicide Squad guest star and the Justice League had to show up. But yeah. This particular one was good. This is being slowly collected in trade. As far as I can tell, DC is almost done collecting this. I'm thinking it's about 2 more trades left, and that's really it. After this, the series ended on a pretty good note. With Count Vertigo talking to Deadshot, asking him if he wants to kill him. He goes for it, and he doesn't do it. Now, after issue 39, they decided to sort of change the focus of the series, where originally it was basically a work release program where you do these certain missions and your time gets cut to a certain point and you get released. That's the original concept was for the first 39 issues. And then after a particular massacre, where Amanda Waller spent a year in prison, she got let go. She was released, pardoned, given $1 million, and she basically was given a Suicide Squad to basically become a mercenary team. And this is basically what the John Ostrander did with the series for the next couple of years, until the end of the series, issue 66. Yeah, so she basically kept Boomerang, Bronze Tiger. Basically, a few people who were part of the actual original incarnation, also, and Dr. Light actually apparently died during the Mission to Apocalypse, though he later came back anyways. And there's also a claim that he was not the original Dr. Light, even though he actually really is. And there's also a very brief interaction between him and his Asian successor. I don't remember her name. She first appeared in the pages of Crisis on Earth. Gorgeous woman. She actually was a brief member of the Justice League in the 80s and 90s. After this series ended, DC apparently liked the concept of Suicide Squad. This fact, Ostrander basically was already done with it at this point. So DC decided to bring it back basically for a few one-shot appearances. First, in the pages of Superboy for a couple issues, where the team was basically Waller, Captain Boomerang, Deadshot, King Shark, Knockout. Now, King Shark and Knockout are actually creations of Ron Martz, who was one of the several writers of the 100-issue Superboy volume. Awesome volume. And I love the fact that during the second half of the series paid a tremendous tribute to like Jack the King Kirby by basically trying to emulate his fantastic art style that he was known for doing. This incarnation only lasted for a few issues and then disbanded. Then for Hawk and Dove Volume 4, Issues 3 and 4, you have Cortez, Shrapnel, who actually is a Doom Patrol villain. He's a robot. Bronze Tiger, Count Vertigo, Terminal, and Felix. That's basically was part of that incarnation. In Chase number 2, this was actually a spin-off title from the pages of Batman. This is all about Chase, sort of like when she's agent of the DEO. This is Cameron Chase, by the way. Where this incarnation is a Bolt. Not really mentioned about this character. Copperhead, who's actually from the pages of Brave Bolt, and he's a Batman villain. Killer Frost, the second one. And Sludge. Yep, that's basically who they were. Chase is a character created by Dan Curtis Johnson. And, that's basically who created the character. With the awesome J.H. Williams III and the artwork. If you ever get a chance to find the short-lived Chase series, it's a fantastic comic book, and it's a shame DC never put this really good series in trade. Great artwork, interesting writing. Had one issue basically where she teams up with the Suicide Squad. Then you have in Secret Files, or just basically Plasmus being part of the group. Yeah, it was one of the main stories in that one shot. And then for Adventure Superman 539, 593, and 594. This is part of the Our Worlds of War, so they threw in some people to join the group, which is basically Manchester Black, Chemico, Superman supporting superhero Steel, and Mongol. That's really it. And then pretty much after that, not long after that, DC in 2001 brought back the Suicide Squad for 12 issues. And they had Keith Giffen and Jenny DeMatteis on the writing. The artwork was a bit bizarre, but here's kind of the thing. I kind of prefer John Ostrander over these guys. Now, I have no problem with Keith Giffen and Jenny DeMatteis. They're great writers. But it kind of felt like, when I read this, it didn't feel like traditional Suicide Squad, despite the fact it is Suicide Squad. Waller is barely in the book. That's probably the first mistake of it. 2, the fact it focused more on Sergeant Rock, a Sergeant Rock, wasn't the, because in present day the guy was already a general. Yeah, and in the first issue, which basically consisted of the line consisted of Big Sur, Bulldozer, Clock King, Clue Master, Major Disaster, and Multiman. Now, all but 2 of these people were killed off in the first issue. And who were these guys? These guys were the first publication version of the Justice League, a group of C-list supervillains. Villains that people have probably never heard of before. But people probably heard of Clock King because he appeared on Arrow for about one episode. And he also appeared on an episode of Flash, played by a guy from Prison Break. Yep. Yeah, Clue Master basically was, at that point to have been dead, but he was later retconned to be alive. Big Sur was the only confirmed survivor of that. Then they had other people join the group. Basically, in issue 2, you have Waller, Havana Modern, Bolt, Leviathan, Eliza, Killer Frost, Putty, Deadshot, Blockstar, Reactron, who actually is as far as I can tell, I think that, Reactron is a Supergirl villain. There's also Hawkman, Power Girl, Star Spangled Kid, and Wildcat. Yeah. Also, Amanda Waller's daughter joined during this incarnation issue 2 and died in issue 12. Yeah, her daughter died. Very weird incarnation. The series ended basically, this volume ended with a very big question mark, like, was this really Sergeant Rock? Yeah, this plot thread was never resolved, especially when the series was brought back in 2008 for a mini-series that Ostrander did. After that, you had a series of Suicide Squads after that. You had One form in Secret Falls 2004, which mainly consisted of Captain Boomerang, Double Down, Killer Shark, and Nemesis. Double Down is a Flash villain, a character who never interacted with the Flash in their universe. And they paid a Checkmate, basically. Now, in Checkmate Volume 2, they basically have it for a series of issues, basically during Reckon's run for the book. Awesome book. I highly recommend it. I also recommend the first volume of the series, where basically Wrecker plants seeds, because you've already heard that Ostrander basically just bring the Brook back for a miniseries. Excuse me, and he went right Waller out of the series. So these people he basically had summoned in order to become part of the Suicide Squad. Rick Flag, who prior to this people thought he was dead, and then he was able to be alive. Yep. Also in issue 24, I should put this out though, there was a senator named Cray, who was actually a crooked senator, which, oh, and here's something really weird. If you ever see pictures of Rick Flag, he's a guy who wears a yellow shirt, black pants and boots, and also in issue 21, there was a guy called Trevor, who was who was written to be an annoying government bureaucrat who would constantly try to interfere in Amanda Waller's affairs. Yeah, he gets killed off in issue 21, and then like 3 issues later, Sandra Croy gets killed off. He's the father of the third Adam, by the way. Basically, Rick Flag wants to kill him, and then all of a sudden, Deadshot shows up. This guy actually is his first appearance issue 18, and he's ordered to make sure that his orders were to make sure Rick Flag can shoot the senator, and then Deadshot himself shoots the senator, and he basically, Ostrander wrote Deadshot like he had a death wish, and Captain Boomerang, he also basically was an escape prone. He basically would constantly escape. Heck, he even had a device on his arm to make sure he didn't escape many times. And Waller gave him a pet name for him. She called him Boomerbutt. Yeah. And no matter how many times they tried to go to the Suicide Squad, he constantly had to be called back to the team, no matter how many times he tried to avoid it. Yeah, and also at one point, during the course of the series, first volume, someone stole Deadshot's costume. He later killed the guy who took his costume by shooting him in the head. And the rest of the time you see him with his mask on, he had a hole in his head. And half the time he wouldn't even wear the mask anyways. Kind of like how in the Suicide Squad film, Will Smith had on the costume. Okay. Now, the members who joined during the initiative Checkmate were Icicle. This is actually the second Icicle who started the original one. Javelin, Punch and Judy, Mirror Master. This is, of course, the second Mirror Master, who was also a Flash villain. But interesting fact, this Mirror Master did not make his first appearance in the pages of The Flash. This will make his debut in the pages of Anoman, and is a creation of the awesome Grant Morrison. Yep. There's also Tattoo Man, who's actually an anti-hero. King Faraday, who actually is a member of Checkmate. Multiplex, Nightshade, and that's really it. They also have people join during the final issue of Outsiders Volume 3, which is basically Bane and Wade Eiling. Wade Eiling is, I believe, a creation of Cary Bates and Greg Weisman. Yeah. There's also, pages 52, we also had Atom Smasher, who was a member of the JSA, Plastique, Count Vertigo, Captain Boomerang, Pursuiter, Electrocutioner, who I believe is dead, Chemical, Deadshot again, Solomon Grundy, surprisingly, and Killer Frost. Yep. And then eventually, Draws brought back the series in 2007 with these fellow people, basically, mainly people who were associated with the original book. Basically, Waller, Colonel Flag, Bronze Tiger, Captain Boomerang, both the first and second one, because Identity Crisis happened, so they had to basically have the first one die up panel, well, not seen anyways, so they brought in his son, who briefly was part of the Suicide Squad. He was also part of the Outsiders as well. Multiplex King, the General, Count Vertigo, Chemico, King Faraday, Marauder, Second Thinker, who's actually, I believe, he's creation of Jerry Conway. White Dragon, Twister, Bodyguard, Windfall, and Plastique. Awesome book. This book is collected and traded. The storyline is called Raise the Flag. And it's just a reunion of the Suicide Squad. Just Ostrander basically reliving his glory days, basically doing the book. Though he does after this miniseries wraps up, he does come back in 2016 to do one more Suicide Squad story. Being released, it was released to coincide with the Suicide Squad film last year called War Crimes, where in the book Waller calls Captain Boomerang Boomerbutt. Yep. Once I heard that, yep, it's definitely John Ostrander because he had Waller frequently call him that in his original book. Yeah, it's basically an interesting story. Like, oh, this guy apparently is charged with war crimes. Oh, he really wasn't. And turns out, yeah, he really did commit all those crimes, and basically Waller killed him at the end of the issue. Kind of pointless issue, but it's basically just purified for Ostrander. People find it Ostrander. They brought back the group in pages of Manhunter, also in Time for Black, I said, when they brought back the original volume. For a few years before Flashpoint, when they had inter-Suicide Squads where they had decent people part of the group, like Waller, Second Count Boomerang, Count Vertigo. Basically, almost everybody was featured before. Venisto and Yamasaz, basically, who was part of the group. These characters showed up pages of Suicide Squad, 6, 7, and of course, an issue of Manhunter. And then eventually, Infinity 2 happened, so they have a brand spanking new lineup. Yeah. And with the reboot, they did something's really bizarre. First of which, they basically decided to slim down Amanda Waller and make her smoking hot for absolutely no reason. And she was like this for 5 years. Yes, skinny Amanda Waller, 5 years. Heck, they even had one member actually fall in love with her. No, seriously, they made me fall in love with her. And these following people were part of this group. You have Black Spider, who actually is a Batman character, who I think they killed him off a couple times. Deadshot, El Diablo. Yeah, this incarnation had El Diablo join the group because prior to this, his only appearance was his own miniseries. King Shark, Harley Quinn, who actually joins this incarnation, never joined before. I had heard she was going to join the group. Salvant, Baltic, Captain Boomerang, when he first showed up in this volume, first appearance post Flashpoint. And there was no mention he ever fought Flash. Not until Justice League vs. Suicide Squad. There was also Yo-Yo, Crowbar, Iceberg, Light, Lime, the Unknown Soldier, James Gordon Jr., the guy who fell in love with Amanda Waller, briefly Power Girl, Warrant, Steel again, and Black Manta joins the group for one issue. And of course, he's part of the group for the replacement series New Suicide Squad. Now, Suicide Squad Volume 4 lasted for 30 issues. No annuals. It did have an issue 0. And of course, there was also a couple one-shots that sort of loosely tied to the series. They were released as part of Fair Evil. There was one for Deadshot, Harley Quinn, and also Amanda Waller herself got a one-shot. I don't think it was collected in trade, but it was interesting. It was okay. Excuse me. And they relaunched the group in 2014 with this line for issue 1. Waller, Black Manta, Deadshot, Deathstroke, Harley Quinn, and Joker's daughter. Deathstroke quit for the first issue. Harley Quinn is removed from the series after issue 3 and sent back to Arkham. She's referenced issue 4, and then she thought, oh yeah, she's off the team. And also, this incarnation was this group was written by Sean Ryan. The previous volume was mostly written by Adam Glass, and Matt Knott took over. Not Matt Knott. Sean Ryan did. I think he did the last issue before it was relaunched. Yeah. Tim Seeley took over this issue, I believe it was 17, and he left with issue 21, and Sean Ryan took over the last issue. They also added Captain Boomerang back to the team. They added the first Reverse Flash post-Flashpoint, Daniel West, who is the brother of Iris West, and he's black. The third Parasite, Cheetah, and the Hunky Punk, who died in the next issue. Yeah. Also, there was a promotion that Poison Ivy was going to join the team. And Black Hand was going to join the team. Yeah, this was a promotion they did after Convergence. During the Convergence, they had this promotion where Cheetah, Poison Ivy, Black Hand, a Man-Bat. There was like 7 people going to join the roster after Convergence. That poster was a complete lie. The only person who actually became part of the roster after Convergence was Cheetah. Also, they strangely decided to add Killer Croc to the team for no reason. Yeah, because he's featured in the film, so why not feature him in the comic book? Also, like, as soon as this volume ended, Rebirth happened, Amanda Waller mysteriously fat again for no explained reason. Yeah. And of course, the book is taken over by currently Rob Williams is the current writer of the book, and the book has gone to a few different artists like Jim Lee. They had Tony S. Daniel do the book. It had a few really good artists. The only artist that kind of basically was okay for this run was Jeremy Jr. Yeah, he did some issues as well, though his artwork was odd. Yeah, and these people who joined this group during this incarnation, we have Rick Flag, Captain Boomerang, Deadshot, Harley Quinn, Enchantress, Katana, Killer Croc. Mainly, it's the lineup from the Suicide Squad film. It's the same exact lineup, minus Slingshot, with the addition of Mad Dog and Killer Frost, briefly before she joins the JLA. Yep. And in this group, this book is publishing for 25 issues, and recently wrapped them at arc, and next issue is going to tie into Goblin Resistance. Suicide Squad by far is a great comic book. I highly recommend tracking down the first volume, which is collecting about 6 trades right now. I think there's still about 2 more trades left to come out. The second volume, as far as I know, is never collected in trade. Third volume has. The fourth volume is entirely in trade. As a matter of fact, they started when they first start. I remember I didn't read initially when this thing started. I read it in trade. It's not a bad volume per se. It's a bit bizarre, especially with half the time your characters getting killed off and they get resurrected for no explained reason. Well, there actually is a reason, because the series did briefly cross over with Resurrection Man for 1 issue. Oh, and by the way, both volumes of Resurrection Man are done by Dan Abbott and Andy Lenny. Yeah, they're the writers for both the first and second volume for the series. Yeah, I always thought that was really bizarre. Yeah, using Resurrection Man's resurrection powers, that's how they brought back dead characters. The series did also have a 2-issue tie-in to Death of the Family, which had the Joker interact with Harley Quinn. Didn't do very much. And the last good chunk of the issue before the last issue were basically tie-ins to Forever Evil, and that was really it. 19 was basically had that thing where whenever issue 19 came out, let's make it a gatefold cover for no explained reason. I like gatefold covers, but 19 just did it for no explained reason. Yeah. I owned the first few issues of Suicide Squad. It was a good volume, nonetheless. It was a little bit better. My biggest problem during Sean Ryan's run was the character of Big Sage. One thing, this is not the Big Sage I was familiar with. When I think of Big Sage, and some people who think of Big Sage, people think of The Question, created by the awesome Steve Ditko. There's an awesome 36-issue comic book that has been collected in trade, though the annuals have been collected in trade for some stupid reason. And this guy was a Big Sage, his name only. This guy had nothing to do with Suicide Squad at all. I don't know why he was even here for. It's like one job, what are you doing here? You're not The Question. Yeah, apparently this was the second version of Big Sage, because for some stupid reason, the New 52 decided to make The Question a supernaturalist character for no reason. Yeah. Basically, one thing you gotta love about the Suicide Squad comic book, the current volume, is something that Rebirth basically, that I can praise it for. Having stuff set up early on and then have explained later. Kind of like what they do with One Piece. A lot of the DC books doing this. I'd say about almost all of them are doing this. Suicide Squad is doing it. The only book I can think of that's not doing this is Justice League. Because basically under Brian Hitch, the book has been plainly just disappointing, kind of bad, though it does have good artwork. Yeah. I don't remember who the current artist is. Now, basically, when they had new Suicide Squad coming out and this current volume, they actually had 2 miniseries of Suicide Squad Most Wanted. The first book basically was a split book between Katana, which was written by her creator, Mike Burr, and different artists. Second half book was Deadshot, written by Brian Buccellato. Yeah, the first half of the series was actually originally supposed to be a set miniseries, which, excuse me, is combined to one. And she had, briefly for this first stories, they had her drop New 52 costume, put on the movie costume for no explained reason, and then by the time she joined Suicide Squad, she's back to her New 52 costume. Then apparently, because that series was successful, they decided to launch a second one, where the first story is all about El Diablo, because apparently he got popular in the movie, so they had him take over the first half of the series, and then they had a rotating door every couple of issues of 2 different characters. The first one was Captain Boomerang. Second one was Killer Croc, and the third was Amanda Waller. I recently did reviews of these trades, and I went my most recent video for my Comic Corner Classics. That's not classics. There is going to be another spin-off series of Suicide Squad Black Files, which is going to be a similar premise to this. Though, during the first arc of the series, they actually had these brief 10-page stories for no explained reason of various characters who remember Suicide Squad. But yeah. Suicide Squad, this current volume, feels like Rob Williams basically is channeling, bringing elements of the first volume for the series in the current continuity. It feels like the first volume. That's what it feels like to me, because I read the first volume well before this volume even came out. Yeah. The series has published over 100 issues so far. I think it's published almost 170 issues in almost 32 years. That's how long this version of the Suicide Squad has been around for. Actually, it's more like 30 years. This year, 30 years. Though next year, I believe I think it's in a couple years when the second Suicide Squad film comes out. Suicide Squad outside the comics has been featured very vague, not very much. They are featured for a couple episodes of Justice Unlimited, a couple episodes of Arrow, though I have heard they're coming back for Arrow Season 6. I heard a rumor about that. Of course, the film. They featured an episode of Smallville, a very weird incarnation. Yep. Which consisted of Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, and their Deadshot looked absolutely terrible. Arrow did a lot better job than Smallville did. Because you can say, yeah, this is Deadshot. The one that appeared on Smallville, I thought he was freaking Jonah Hex by his outfit. Yeah. At least Rick Flag actually act like Rick Flag from the comic books. Though they reference Rick Flag in the Arrow TV show, apparently got sent off overseas. Okay. Not much else to say about the Suicide Squad, but it's a great series. I highly recommend it. Okay. So that's it for this comic book history episode 25. Stay tuned when I get a chance to do issue 26. I haven't decided yet when I'm going to do issue 26 yet. I decided to do Suicide Squad because why not? Okay. Until I see you on my next video.